Welcome to the official launch of WoolStreet. I'm your host, Jordan Haddad. Join me as we explore the world of personal and business credit, empowering entrepreneurs and individuals alike. Today, we have a credit repair expert, and his name is Gio from Credit Guides as our special guest. So I want to open this by asking, what fueled you to want to help others to fix and build their credit portfolios?
So at an early age, I got myself into about $150,000 into debt. And some guy that used to work at this warehouse with me told me that I was too young to have that much debt and I should file bankruptcy. And at the time, I had no idea what bankruptcy was. I contacted a lawyer. I went to court. I eliminated all my debt, and I just thought it was so weird how you can get all this credit and then just wipe it all out with bankruptcy, not realizing that when I went to get credit again, when I purchased a car, they whacked me with a 21% interest rate. And that's when I kind of learned how messed up the whole credit system was, how they allow you to get all this credit. Then they say, it's okay, you can't pay us back, just file bankruptcy. But when you apply for credit again, you're just, you pay these high interest rates. And it all could have been avoided had I just knew more about the credit game. One of those things they don't teach you in school about finances or credit or about money. It's just something that you kind of learn the hard way sometimes.
That's 100% the truth. And I totally respect that you built up that bad decision that you had made, and obviously the lessons that you learned, and transition that into a better opportunity. So what are the key factors that affect credit scores, and how can individuals and entrepreneurs improve them?
So the key factors that basically affect your credit scores are your debt to credit ratio, which means how much available credit you have compared to the amount of debt you have. Obviously, on-time payments with anything is going to be one of the biggest factors, because one late payment can totally drop your score anywhere between 75 to 100 points. The on-time payments, your debt to credit ratio, and then just a little bit has to do with your inquiries, and a little bit has to do with your history. But the two main things that you want to really look out for is just making sure your payments are on time, and making sure that you kind of keep your debt to credit ratio between 20 to 35% of all your credit balances.
Good to know. Okay. Now, what are some common mistakes people make that negatively impact their credit, and how can those people avoid those mistakes?
So a lot of times, like when I mentioned about the late payments. So a lot of times people will be like, man, I missed my payment. It was due on the 5th. It's the 15th. My credit's screwed now anyways. That's not necessarily the case. So they will not report you. Any company will not report you unless you're 30 days late or more. So always, not saying that, you should wait to that 29, 30-day mark to make the payment. But, if you do happen to miss a payment and you're a week or two behind, it's okay, because it's not going to affect your credit score until it hits that 30-day mark. So I've ran into a lot of people where they were like, well, my payment was due on the 5th, and, I didn't get paid to the 20th, but at that point I was already late, so it didn't matter. It's not going to affect the credit unless it's 30 days or more. So that's one of the biggest things that I've seen. And then people that close out their credit cards because they're not using them anymore also takes a hit on the credit, because it closes that account and it takes away that available credit.
Good to know. Okay. Now, I guess before I ask my next question, when people cancel their credit cards, and I know you mentioned that it does affect your credit report, but is that something that typically with people in the credit industry and being experts in that field, that's something that people typically run into issues with credit, canceling their credit cards, correct?
Yes, it is. Just a lot of reasons. A lot of times people close them because they haven't used them. A lot of times the credit grantors themselves will close them because they're not, because the issuer isn't using the card. So you always want to keep like some type of activity on the cards, whether you're really using them or not, or at least make sure you have enough open accounts so that your available credit is still good, and you don't go close a $10,000 Chase card that you haven't used, and then you only have, say, $2,000 available on other cards, but your balance on those is $1,500, because that really fluctuates. That goes back to that debt to credit ratio.
Okay. Now with that mistake, when that does happen, if somebody does get their credit card closed on them and or they close it on themselves, because it's not just credit cards, it's other like retail store cards, grocery store cards. So when that happens, I know you said having, better credit aspect with different cards and a bunch of other options, but what's the way that they can get out of that like hassle of, damn, I shouldn't have opened this card. How can I fix this? What's that advice that you can give people that deal with that specifically?
Again, I guess it just goes back to, you just really gotta, know your finances and know exactly what's on your credit so that you can really factor in on that debt to credit ratio. You always want to have a good amount of available credit. Like I said, between 20 to 35% is what you want, between your available credit to what your debt is. So you just kind
Perfect.
of, you got to kind of watch, be aware, because that's one thing. It's like taxes. It doesn't matter what state you move to. It doesn't matter where you go. Your credit's always going to follow you, no matter what. It's always going to follow you.
Perfect. No, that's, 100% the truth. Credit, a lot of people underestimate the credit aspect, and it's something that goes a long way. So that leads into my next question. Is there any strategies or tips that you recommend for building credit from scratch, especially those that are starting new businesses?
Yeah. So if you want to build credit from scratch, the best thing to do, I know a lot of people say, get the secured cards, which, those are okay. But typically, a secured card, the most I've seen, they want to give you is like $2,500 of your own money. The best way to do that is, and it's called piggybacking, and it's something that's been around for a very long time. And parents used to do it for their kids when they went to college. They just turned 18, they're on their way to college, and they want to establish credit, but it's hard to establish credit when you don't have any. So they add them on as an authorized user. Um, you know, it was something that was very typical back then. We add trade lines as well, but I mean, if you can get somebody to add you on as an authorized user, it's a great way to establish credit and start building credit on your own.
Perfect. Now, with new small business owners that just got their licensing, all that, legal aspect, when they have that new business finally started, what ways can they go about it? Would it be the same aspect or a different direction?
A little bit of a different direction. So a new business has a tax ID number, which is basically the business's social security number. It's still 9 digits. It's just broken up differently. So if you look at a tax ID number, it's 2 numbers, then a dash, and then 7 numbers. So with our socials, it's 3 numbers, then two, then three. But they're still 9 digits. So your tax ID number essentially is your social security number for your business. There's a company that's been around as long as I can remember that's called Dun and Bradstreet. It's called a D&B number. So you definitely want to get that as a new business owner, because basically that is your credit bureau for your business. So just like Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian is the credit bureaus for your personal. Duns and Bradstreet is the credit bureau for your business. Now there's Experian's business and there's Equifax business, but Duns and Bradstreet is the one that lenders are going to look at, because those are the ones that are typically your vendors are going to report to say, you're paying them on time, you're not paying them on time, how do you pay? And Duns and Bradstreet will offer you trade lines to help you build your business credit for a small fee, but the actual Duns and Bradstreet number itself is free, just like your tax ID number is free. So I would recommend and suggest that anybody that has a small business, or that just started, or that's been in business for a while, if they haven't got the Duns and Bradstreet number, that they should definitely get it. And on their website, there's all kinds of information. They have a 24-hour support chat line, and they can go a little bit further into detail on adding trade lines for your business and helping you establish business credit. And they also will link you to lenders that will actually give your business a loan.
Perfect. Okay. Now, with obviously that's more of people that have created the business and the beginning processes. Now, what if you've been in business for about 10 plus years and your credit slowly is going down, in regards to you can't get really good loans, you're having bad reports. how can those people fix it? Would it be the same aspect with that website, or would it be a completely different direction?
Again, it's a lot of times when you're a new business, they will still ask for a personal guarantee. So you want to make sure that any officer, anyone on the business, has a good credit. But if you've been in business for a long time, it's just going to depend on what that report says for Duns and Bradstreet. I guess it's the same as, somebody can be 40 and have a 500 credit score, and somebody can be 20 and have a 780 credit score. So it's just really based on the history of the business, because a lot of times some of your vendors won't report until you didn't pay them. Then they want to report, so it's essentially the same thing. You just have to look as your business as a different entity, and how the business pays its bills and how relationship they have with their vendors.
Okay. Now, I know you mentioned it earlier in the beginning of the episode with your sort of setback that sort of transitioned you into, bigger and better opportunities to help and inspire other people. But what steps can somebody take that to repair their credit that has experienced those financial setbacks or have negative marks on their credit history?
To repair your credit, it is one of those, how do I say it? It is something that you have to be leery of, because there is a lot of pop-up credit repair companies, and there's a lot of scams out there, just like there is with anything, so you gotta kind of be careful. You gotta kind of watch out who you're dealing with when it comes to that. You can repair your credit on your own. The thing is, it's very time consuming, and then there's a lot of loopholes and a lot of research that goes into it that people are just unaware of. So, for example, like medical bills, which is on the majority of people's credit reports, it's actually illegal to be on your credit report because it violates the 1974 Privacy Act. So, if you were to go to the hospital and the insurance didn't cover your whole bill, and then there's a balance left over that carries over, and you didn't pay it, if eventually you don't pay it, they end up sending it to a collection agency. Well, by them doing that, it violates the 1974 Privacy Act, because with enough information, the collection agency can actually find out what you went to the hospital for. And there has to be enough information sent over to the collection agency in order for them to be able to report it onto your credit bureau. So they would need your name, your address, your social, your phone number. And with that information, that's enough information to find out exactly what you went to the hospital for. So the hospital illegally sold your information. So it violates the 1974 Privacy Act, which you can actually sue the hospital up to $1,000, and you can actually sue the collection agency up to $1,000 every 30 days until they remove it. So actually, medical is one of the main things that people see on their credit reports that shouldn't be on there. It is actually one of the easiest things to get removed from a credit report that people just don't realize. They just say, my insurance was supposed to pay this, and then a lot of times when they go get a mortgage, the mortgage guy says, hey, listen, just pay these medical bills off and you'll be good. We'll be able to get you the loan. And that's what people end up doing.
That's very good to know. That's something that I feel like many people do struggle with nowadays. And like you said, they're scared to take that risk of, well, why is this medical bill that I'm supposed to trust the doctors and the offices that I go see? So that's very good for the viewers and the listeners that are tuning in with us to know about how they can overstep that. Now, in your experience, what are some lesser knowns or some overlooked aspects when it comes to the credit management aspect that can have a significant impact on financial success?
Sometimes, like, let's say you go out and you want to buy a car. The dealership, they don't care how many inquiries they're going to put on your credit. You might have a 780 credit score, and the bank might be giving them, only 2 points. And what I mean by 2 points is if they come back and they say, Jordan, we got you 5% interest rate, but the bank is actually giving them 4%, and they're saying, you know what, let's try Chase. Okay, Chase only wants to give us a 0.2. Okay, let's try Capital One. Okay, perfect. Capital One will give us 2 points. So that means that they're charging you 5%, but the bank is actually giving you 3%. But the dealership wants to make money on the financing as well. So they'll keep running your credit until they can get the best amount of points, because it can range from 1 point all the way to 2.5 points, which means on the interest. So you may be getting 3% from Chase, but the dealership might be telling you, well, Jordan, we can get you 5.5% is the rate, right? So they're gonna keep running your credit until they figure, well, what's the best bank for us to go with, not so much what's the best bank for you to go with.
Okay.
And that takes an effect. Sometimes people are like, dude, I'm a 780. Why did you run my credit 5 times? Doesn't make any sense. Like, you should only had to run my credit once in order to get me approved, which is true, which is the case. But a lot of times the bank favors the consumer more than it favors the dealership. So the dealership will just keep bouncing you around to other banks until they can figure out what works best for them. So, those are things that you got to kind of, be aware of, because a lot of times when you sign that credit application, you're giving them permission to run your credit as much as they want.
Okay. No, I appreciate you for telling us that lesson that people need to understand. Now, to add on a question with what you just said, now, when people do run your credit report and, it's the 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, it does affect your score. That I know sometimes, people always say that the misconception of it takes about a year, 2 years for it to fall off. Is there easier methods or a different way that they should approach like the minor, like 1 or 2 point effects on their credit report?
Yeah. So with inquiries, it does take 2 years before it comes off. And then the other issue is when you have multiple inquiries, especially within a short period of time, the other lenders will look at that and be like, why is this guy running around applying for credit everywhere? What's his plan? Is he trying to accumulate all this debt and then he's just going to file bankruptcy shortly down the road? Because on your credit reports, you'll see promotional inquiries that don't affect your credit score. Those are your actual lenders taking like a look at your credit in the back end, to see like, hey, how is Jordan paying Chase? Oh, okay, he's paying them on time. Oh, look, Jordan just missed his mortgage payment. Well, if he didn't pay his mortgage on time, well, guess what? Then we're going to be next. So your creditors are consistently watching, how you apply for credit and also how you're paying your other lenders. So that's something to keep in mind too. So, you kind of want to vary out when you apply for credit. You kind of want to space it out where you're not doing it all at one time.
Good to know. Now, I know some people do think about this, and I want to get your input and your opinion on this. Now, when it comes to bankruptcy and filing for bankruptcy, is that something that you would try to have people avoid from doing than actually going through that method? Or is that something that you would recommend if it's really that needed situation?
So, bankruptcy laws have changed a lot from, when I filed back in 2007 until now. Like I said, it was, hey, you walk into the courtroom and the judge dismisses all of it as long as none of your lenders show up. Now, in order to file a Chapter 7, they actually will look into your finances and they'll say, well, Jordan, it seems like you're making plenty of money to be able to pay your creditors back. We'll just put you in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which means it still affects your credit because it shows up as a public record as a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Every lender that you're paying back in the Chapter 13 is going to show up on your credit, included in the Chapter 13. So my suggestion would be to avoid that at all costs, because a lot of the things that you're filing in the bankruptcy are the majority of the things that have already been charged off and the things that are already in collections. Those are all things that can be removed from your credit report without you having to pay them.
Even with credit, like collection companies, with that aspect, if it is on your report, I know, because obviously half the time you can usually like negotiate with the credit report or collection agency to get a lower balance. Is that something that people should try to get off their credit first before negotiating a better price?
Yeah, because essentially, like I worked for a guy that owned a collection agency, and he wanted, he had so many leads of people that were actually paying off their collections, but they were doing it because they wanted to clean up their credit. So, we rented out an office in the same building as him. So all of the leads from the people that, Jordan, you just paid off your collection account because you want to improve your credit. Well, here, we're gonna have you talk to Gio now, because Gio's gonna help you remove the other collections. Um, collection agencies, it's just a third party. You never signed an agreement with them, and you never, let's just say with Capital One, you never signed an agreement with Capital One that if you don't pay them, that when they send you to the collection agency, that you agree to pay them. You don't have any contractual agreement between you and the collection agency. The contractual agreement was between you and Capital One. Capital One charged your account off, which means it's a tax write-off to them. So even when you pay that collection agency, that money's not going back to Capital One. It's just going to the collection agency. And then the mistake a lot of people make is they feel like, well, once I pay them, it's going to improve my credit. But unless you make that agreement with the collection agency to say, hey, I agree to pay you this, but you also have to agree to remove it from my credit report. Because a lot of times it'll just show it as a paid collection, which is still going to affect your credit because it's still showing us as a collection on your credit report.
Good.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it's very good to know. Now, my last thing that I want to ask, and this is more on a personal aspect, is there, with your company's credit guides, is there anything that you would like? And I'm going to be dropping the links to everybody so you guys can check out Gio's company. Make sure you guys follow him. And if you need credit repair, we will have a link posted with the podcast. That way you guys can tune into that. But is there any advice, or I guess any updates or anything that you would like the listeners to know about credit guides and what you have coming for you next?
Yeah, so we're located in Oak Brook Terrace in Illinois. We've been in business since 2007. We had multiple locations in Berwyn, in Indiana, in Schaumburg, but we've kind of just we've downsized. We've downsized, to one commercial location, which is in Oak Brook. The consultations are free. We can do it over the phone. We can do it in person at the office. So, all the consultations are free. We offer, payment plans. It's affordable. It's going to save you so much money. And we're willing to help you. If you're wanting to try to do this on your own, we're willing to help you. Kind of walk you through the process of doing it. But again, it's like with anything, if you get in trouble, you can represent yourself in court, but you're probably better off getting an attorney. If you break your leg, you can probably bandage yourself up, but you're better off going to see a doctor. And it's the same thing with the credit. We have the knowledge, the experience, and we've done the research, and we know the credit laws, and we know the laws when it comes to collections. And like I mentioned earlier, like with the medical, so it's like with anything. You kind of want to just hand it over to the experts to let them do it. And that's what we are. We've been in the business for a long time. We have an actual physical location, so that people can feel more comfortable coming to an office, meeting in person. We have a website, and we're super excited about being an affiliate with the Black Sheep, and just getting it out there, because there's so many people that are out there that are affected by it. And they just pay the high interest rates. They pay the high rates on the car loans, on the mortgages, on their credit cards, and it's it's really something that doesn't take too long. A lot of people think that I don't have years to wait to get my credit fixed. The process can be anywhere from 30 days up to 6 months, and as long as you maintain your credit, it'll stick with you for the rest of your life. Having good credit. Everybody falls into some financial hardship, whether it's from a divorce, whether it's from a loss of a job, whether it's from COVID. So uh, there's nothing wrong with somebody having bad credit. The only wrong part about it is just thinking that, well, I'm stuck with bad credit because I have bad credit, because that's not the case. The industry wants you to believe that it's 7 years your credit will get better on its own, or it's 10 years after this things will just kind of fall off on their own. But again, like I said, it could be as short as 30 days, it could be as long as 6 months. But within that time frame, you're going to see your credit being improved every month, every 30 days, until the process is completed.
Perfect. I love to hear that. And as stated, everyone, I will be dropping the link to Gio's company, his Instagram, as well as the location of the office, as well as the episode link. So you guys can all tune into that to make sure you guys can go fix your credit. Really dive into what the opportunity is in front of you. I know we all go through hardships when it comes to, finances, business, just different things when it comes to the world we live in nowadays. But, when it comes to the credit repair, make sure you guys hit up Credit Gods to really tune into diving and having those financial dreams really carry you into your reality that you want to live in. Because at the end of the day, and Gio, you could probably attest to this, your finances really go co in hand when it comes to your dreams. It's not a one-way streak. Like, you have to have both in order to, like, both at the good spot to really fulfill that, like, idea that you want to live or bring to the light.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I used to see people with the nice cars and used to think like, man, those guys make a lot of money. And, what I came to realize is that the guy driving the older car and the lesser model is paying more than the guy driving around in the newer car because of his credit, because of his interest rate. So it definitely does affect it in every aspect, when it comes to real estate, when it comes to, getting loans, when it comes to opening a business, when it comes to having a nice car, when it comes to all those things, your finances are definitely going to take an effect, because everything is based off of, your credit score.
Perfect. Well, thank you for tuning in with us today, guys. This is the first episode of many more to come when it comes to WoolStreet. Gio, thank you again for taking the time to hop on this podcast to go ahead and teach people the financial aspects. We will be having our next episode dropping next Wednesday with a special guest in the Texas area. So all my Texas fans and all my people that are out there, make sure you guys tune into this. I will be tagging Gio with all of his links. So tune into him, tune into Credit Gods. Thank you guys. Have an amazing day and stay blessed.